A dream wedding. $1 million estate. And by morning, one bridesmaid dead, the bride missing, and the groom hiding more than just secrets. This wasn't just a ceremony, it was a setup. And you won't believe what really happened at the Belmont estate. Welcome to True Crime Teejan. Thanks to all my viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay tuned for daily true crime updates, and don't forget to subscribe. Napa Valley. It's a name that conjures images of sun-drenched vineyards stretching across rolling hills, a landscape where the air is thick with the promise of fine wine and the leisurely pace of a life lived well. But beneath this idyllic facade lies a complex ecosystem of ambition, rivalry, and secrets, a world where immense wealth and social standing can often mask the darkest corners of human nature. And at the heart of this exclusive enclave, the prestigious Belmont estate stood as a monument to generations of prosperity, a picture-perfect setting for what was meant to be the wedding of the year. Ava Sinclair, a woman who had meticulously cultivated an image of sophisticated elegance and quiet wealth, was about to marry Ethan Caldwell, a self-made tech mogul whose innovative genius had propelled him to the very apex of the digital world. Their union was more than just a personal commitment, it was a strategic alliance, a melding of two powerful dynasties that had captivated the attention of their exclusive social circle, promising a future brimming with influence and affluence. Belmont Estate, a sprawling property that had been in the Sinclair family for over a century, exuded an aura of timeless elegance. Its imposing stone architecture, softened by the lush embrace of climbing ivy that whispered secrets in the gentle breeze, spoke of generations of tradition and prosperity. Manicured gardens, a riot of color and fragrance with meticulously sculpted hedges and overflowing flower beds, cascaded down towards the seemingly endless expanse of vineyards, the leaves rustling in the afternoon sun like hushed conversations. The air was alive with a carefully orchestrated symphony of activity, the cheerful chatter of caterers in crisp white uniforms, the focused instructions of the wedding planner as she oversaw every minute detail, the distant laughter of early arriving guests already indulging in the estate's renowned wines. Inside the opulent ballroom, bathed in the warm, golden light filtering through towering arched windows adorned with delicate lace curtains, florists meticulously crafted breathtaking arrangements of pristine white orchids and fragrant gardenias, their intoxicating perfume mingling with the subtle aroma of freshly pressed linen. Crystal glasses, polished to a dazzling shine, stood ready on elegantly draped tables, reflecting the anticipation that permeated the air. Every element, from the handcrafted invitations to the meticulously chosen menu, had been curated to perfection, a testament to the couple's discerning taste and the boundless resources at their command. Ethan Caldwell, the groom, projected an image of quiet power and unwavering determination. His impeccably tailored suit, the epitome of understated luxury, accentuated his lean, athletic build. His dark eyes, sharp and intensely focused, constantly scanned the room, absorbing every detail with an almost unnerving intensity. While his smile was frequent and undeniably charming, there was a certain calculation behind it, a sense that every interaction was carefully considered. His meteoric rise to success had forged within him a steely resilience and an unyielding need for control, traits that those closest to him recognized as both his greatest strengths and potential weaknesses. Ava Sinclair, the bride, appeared the embodiment of serene grace and effortless sophistication. Her custom-designed gown, a breathtaking creation of hand-stitched lace and flowing silk, seemed to float around her as she moved with a quiet confidence. Her smile radiated warmth and genuine pleasure, her eyes sparkling with what seemed to be pure, unadulterated joy. Yet, those who had known Ava for many years understood the carefully constructed facade she maintained, the invisible barriers she had painstakingly erected around her heart to protect a deep-seated vulnerability stemming from a turbulent past marked by loss and betrayal. Her impending marriage to Ethan represented not just a passionate connection, but also a longed for haven of security and stability, a chance to finally put the shadows of her past behind her. However, even amidst the joyous whirlwind of pre-wedding festivities, a subtle undercurrent of tension, an almost imperceptible flicker of unease, seemed to dance in the air between them, a silent whisper hinting at unresolved issues lurking beneath the surface. The wedding ceremony, held in a picturesque clearing nestled amidst the oldest vines overlooking the breathtaking panorama of the valley, was a scene of profound beauty and heartfelt emotion. The vows exchanged between Ava and Ethan were met with tears and heartfelt applause from their assembled guests, promising a future filled with love, commitment, and shared happiness. The reception that followed was a lavish affair, a seemingly endless procession of culinary delights, vintage wines that spoke of the estate's rich history, and lively conversation that filled the air with a joyful energy. As the evening unfolded, however, a subtle shift began to occur, almost imperceptibly at first. The initial high spirits seemed to gradually mellow, replaced by a more relaxed, contented murmur. But as the stars began to paint the night sky with their distant, ethereal light, a disquieting undercurrent began to stir, like a chill wind rustling through the leaves. Ava, the radiant bride who had been the undisputed focal point of the day, had seemingly vanished. Initially, her absence was attributed to a brief moment of needing to freshen up, a stolen moment of quiet contemplation amidst the joyous chaos. But as minutes stretched into an hour, and then two, a knot of concern began to tighten in the chests of some of the more observant guests. Whispers began to circulate, questions asked in hushed tones, nervous glances exchanged as an unspoken anxiety began to permeate the celebratory atmosphere. The carefully constructed illusion of a perfect day began to fray at the edges, replaced by a growing sense that something was profoundly, irrevocably wrong. Olivia, Ava's ever-present personal assistant, a woman who had become more of a confidant and shadow over the years, was the first to voice the growing alarm with a palpable tremor in her voice. Her face etched with worry lines that belied her youthful appearance, she discreetly alerted the wedding planner, a whirlwind of seemingly unflappable efficiency whose initial air of confident control began to visibly crumble under the weight of this unprecedented and unsettling development. A more organized, though still discreet, search of the sprawling estate commenced, the earlier joyous atmosphere now completely eclipsed by a tangible tension. Small groups of guests, their earlier laughter now replaced by hushed whispers and worried frowns, quietly fanned out across the grounds, their footsteps echoing eerily in the growing stillness of the night. And then, the unthinkable news began to spread, carried on hushed whispers that turned to gasps of horror. Jade Moreno, Ava's closest friend since childhood, the maid of honor who had stood beaming beside her at the altar, the confidant with whom she had shared so many secrets, had been found. Her lifeless body lay broken and still in the cold, silent depths of the Belmont Estate's wine cellar, a dark and terrifying contrast to the joyous celebration that had unfolded just hours before. The scene that greeted the first responders in the dimly lit, subterranean world of the wine cellar was a tableau of sudden and brutal violence that stood in stark contrast to the elegant celebration above. The air, usually filled with the rich, earthy aroma of aging Cabernet and Chardonnay, was now thick with the unmistakable metallic tang of blood, a scent that cut through the hushed silence like a chilling whisper. Jade lay sprawled amidst the dusty racks of vintage wines, her elegant bridesmaid dress, a flowing creation of soft lilac silk, torn and stained with dark, ominous splotches. Her body was contorted at an unnatural angle, her head resting on the cold, damp stone floor, a stark and horrifying testament to the force that had taken her life. A small, ornate wine rack lay overturned nearby, its precious bottles scattered across the floor, the dark red liquid mingling with the grim evidence of the crime. The discovery sent a shockwave of pure, unadulterated horror through the few guests and staff members who had stumbled upon the scene, their initial disbelief quickly giving way to gut-wrenching sobs and panicked cries that echoed through the estate, shattering the illusion of tranquility forever. The tranquil Napa Valley night was irrevocably shattered by the piercing wail of sirens as law enforcement vehicles descended upon Belmont Estate, their flashing blue and red lights casting an unsettling glow across the once joyful landscape. Detective Rowan Blake, a seasoned homicide investigator with a reputation for his meticulous approach and his ability to remain amidst even the most chaotic of situations, arrived at Belmont Estate. His sharp, intelligent eyes surveyed the scene, taking in every detail, every nuance. He understood that in cases like these, the truth often lay hidden beneath layers of carefully constructed facades and emotional turmoil. His first priority was to establish control, secure the sprawling crime scene, and begin the painstaking process of piecing together the shattered fragments of what had begun as a fairy tale wedding. Detective Blake's initial hours were spent conducting interviews with the distraught wedding guests. Each conversation was a delicate dance, trying to glean factual information from individuals who were still reeling from shock and grief. The seemingly close friendship between Ava and Jade was a recurring theme, yet Detective Blake noted subtle inconsistencies in the way different individuals described their relationship. The recently concluded affair between Jade and Ethan Caldwell emerged as a significant thread in the unraveling story. While Ethan, in his initial statements, portrayed it as a brief and inconsequential indiscretion that had ended amicably before his engagement to Ava, other members of the wedding party offered more nuanced accounts, suggesting lingering resentment and unresolved feelings. Ava's knowledge of the affair remained a key question mark, adding another layer of complexity to the already tangled web of relationships. The extensive, state-of-the-art security system at Belmont Estate proved to be an invaluable resource for the investigation. The detailed footage captured a chronological record of the wedding day's events. The review process was painstaking, with detectives meticulously scrutinizing every frame, every movement. The initial scenes depicted the joyous celebration, the happy couple surrounded by their loved ones. Then came the critical hours after the reception began to wind down. The footage clearly showed Ava leaving her bridal suite at 11:47 p.m., depicting her calmly wheeling a stylish, though surprisingly small, overnight bag. Her facial expression remained neutral, almost detached, offering no clear indication of her intentions. This raised questions about her intentions and whether her departure was planned. However, the footage also captured the figure in the groomsman's tuxedo entering the wine cellar at 1:17 a.m. Upon closer analysis, enhanced by forensic technicians, a few key details emerged. The individual appeared to be of average height and build, moving with a deliberate, almost stealthy gait. While their face remained obscured, a distinctive watch was visible on their left wrist, a detail that Detective Blake immediately flagged as potentially significant. The individual remained in the cellar for 14 crucial minutes before exiting and quickly disappearing back into the darkness, their movements suggesting a clear purpose. This timing, so close to the estimated time of Jade's death, made this figure a prime suspect. Detective Blake's team embarked on a deep dive into the personal histories of Ava Sinclair, Ethan Caldwell, and Jade Moreno, hoping to unearth the hidden motivations and past experiences that might have contributed to the present tragedy. Ava's seemingly charmed life had been marked by significant loss early on, shaping her into a fiercely independent and fiercely protective individual. Her relationship with Daniel Hayes had been a tumultuous one, escalating from passionate romance to obsessive control, leaving deep emotional scars that had never fully healed. Ethan Caldwell's rise to prominence had been paved with ambition and a ruthless determination to succeed, traits that had alienated some and instilled a sense of unease in others. Rumors of sharp business practices and a relentless pursuit of wealth had followed him throughout his career. Jade Moreno, seemingly the loyal and supportive best friend, harbored her own secret desires and resentments, her brief affair with Ethan revealing a hidden vulnerability and a possible yearning for a life beyond the confines of her longtime friendship with Ava. These intricate and often conflicting backstories painted a far more complex picture than the initial image of a happy couple surrounded by loving friends. The discovery of Ava's journal, secreted away behind the ornate mirror in her bridal suite, offered a chilling and deeply personal glimpse into the bride's deteriorating mental state in the days and hours leading up to the wedding. The initial entries chronicled the typical excitement and anxieties associated with planning a wedding, but a palpable darkness began to creep into her writing as the date approached. Her elegant script became more jagged, her sentences shorter and more fragmented, reflecting a growing sense of unease and paranoia. She wrote of feeling increasingly isolated from Ethan, of perceiving subtle shifts in his behavior, fleeting moments of coldness that sent shivers down her spine. Her entries detailed overheard conversations between Ethan and Jade, seemingly innocuous on the surface, but in Ava's increasingly fearful mind, they took on a sinister significance. Ethan said something to Jade about the final arrangements today. One entry read, "It sent a shiver down my spine." Another entry described a dream she had of being trapped, unable to escape, a dream she interpreted as a terrifying premonition. The final entries were a raw outpouring of terror and desperation. "I know they're planning something," one entry scrawled in shaky handwriting declared. "I see it in their eyes." Ethan's smile doesn't reach his eyes anymore, and Jade, she looks at me with this strange mixture of pity and something else, something I can't quite decipher. If anything happens to me, if I disappear, they did it. You have to believe me. The journal presented a compelling, albeit potentially unreliable, narrative of a woman convinced she was in grave danger. Detective Blake found himself navigating a labyrinth of contradictions and uncertainties. Ava's journal painted a clear picture of her fear of Ethan and Jade, yet her seemingly calm departure captured on video didn't entirely align with that level of terror. The mysterious figure in the groomsman's tuxedo remained a central enigma. If Ethan and Jade were indeed plotting against Ava, why would Ethan be the one entering the cellar after Jade's death? Was he ensuring she was dead? Was he looking for Ava? Or was he involved in Jade's death in a way that Ava hadn't perceived? Detective Blake considered multiple theories, each with its own set of inconsistencies. Was Daniel Hayes somehow involved, his obsession resurfacing in a violent act? Was Ava suffering from a delusion, her fear and paranoia leading to a tragic confrontation with Jade? Or was there a far more intricate and sinister plot orchestrated by Ethan Caldwell, with everyone else merely pawns in his deadly game? The detailed analysis of the forensic evidence from the wine cellar began to provide a more objective perspective on the events that had transpired. The blood spatter patterns indicated a relatively contained altercation, suggesting Jade had been attacked suddenly and violently but not necessarily held captive for a prolonged period. Defensive wounds on Jade's hands indicated she had fought back, but the fatal blow to her neck had been swift and decisive. There was no evidence of forced entry into the cellar, suggesting Jade had either gone there willingly or been lured there by someone she knew. The absence of Ethan's fingerprints in the wine cellar, except for areas consistent with his role as the groom at the wedding, further complicated Ava's accusations. Confronted with these forensic findings and the discrepancies between her journal entries and her seemingly calm demeanor on the surveillance footage, Ava's carefully constructed narrative began to crumble. Under intense questioning, the truth finally began to emerge, a tragic story of fear, paranoia, and a fatal confrontation. In a heated argument in the wine cellar, likely stemming from Ava's accusations about the affair and her escalating fears about their intentions, a violent struggle had erupted. In that moment of intense emotion and perceived threat, Ava had acted impulsively, the blow to Jade's neck proving to be tragically fatal. Her subsequent actions, staging the scene to appear like an accident and fleeing the estate, were born not out of a pre-planned escape from a murderous plot, but rather a desperate and panicked attempt to evade responsibility for her actions. But the most chilling layer of the tragedy at Belmont Estate lay in the calculated and ruthless actions of Ethan Caldwell. While Ava's actions were born out of fear and a moment of uncontrolled violence, Ethan's were the product of cold, premeditated manipulation driven by an insatiable greed for wealth and power. The reinvestigation into the death of his previous fiancée revealed a carefully constructed facade, the evidence now strongly suggesting his direct involvement in her demise to gain control of her considerable fortune. Ava was simply the next target in his sinister plan. He had entered into the marriage not out of love, but out of a desire to control her considerable wealth. The figure in the groomsman's tuxedo on the security footage was indeed Ethan. His return to the wine cellar after Ava had already fled was a calculated move to ensure that Jade was truly dead and to further stage the scene in a way that would deflect suspicion entirely away from himself and potentially towards Ava. He had meticulously planned the entire wedding weekend, anticipating Ava's death and his subsequent inheritance, believing he had flawlessly accounted for every possible contingency. He had underestimated the volatile mix of Ava's fear and her capacity for violence, her desperate act of self-preservation inadvertently disrupting his meticulously planned scheme and ultimately leading to his own downfall. The grand spectacle of the wedding at Belmont Estate had tragically imploded, the joyous celebration replaced by the grim reality of betrayal and violence, the vows of love spoken with such apparent sincerity revealed to be nothing more than a cynical charade. The pursuit of wealth and power had led down a dark and irreversible path, leaving behind a trail of shattered lives and a community grappling with the horrific truth of what had transpired within the seemingly idyllic confines of the Napa Valley estate. In the end, justice, though imperfect, was ultimately served at Belmont Estate. Ava Sinclair was convicted of voluntary manslaughter in the death of Jade Moreno, the jury finding that while she had acted in the heat of the moment, her actions were not justified as self-defense due to her subsequent attempts to conceal the truth. Ethan Caldwell was found guilty of the murder of his previous fiancée and faced additional charges for his manipulative actions surrounding Jade's death, his carefully constructed world finally crumbling under the weight of his own lies and greed. The sun-drenched vineyards of Napa Valley, once a symbol of romance and prosperity, now carried the haunting memory of the tragedy that had unfolded at Belmont Estate, a stark and chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath even the most beautiful surfaces and the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition and deep-seated fear. The truth, as it so often does, proved to be far more complex and profoundly disturbing than any imagined narrative. The Belmont Estate was meant to host a dream, a perfect union, a celebration of love wrapped in elegance and tradition. Instead, it became the stage for a dark unraveling, a bridesmaid dead, a bride on the run, and a groom who turned romance into a calculated game of control and inheritance. In the aftermath, justice came, but it came with scars, secrets, and the haunting realization that even in a world of wealth and beauty, no one is truly safe from betrayal. As the vineyards continue to flourish and the estate's ivy-covered walls remain standing, they do so in silence, bearing witness to a truth few will ever fully know. So we'll leave you with this. If love is the most dangerous game of all, how do you know when the person you're standing across from at the altar isn't playing you to win? This has been another chilling chapter from True Crime Teejan. If stories like this keep you up at night, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Because next time, the truth might be even darker.